Hello, my name is Allison Dunbar. I have worked as an early childhood educator for several years now, in several very different cities and states. They all had one thing in common. They were rich in cultural diversity. In the U.S., between 2000 and 2015, the percentage of white students in public schools fell about 12%. Black student percentages fell as well, about 2%. In contrast, however, the percentage of Hispanic and Asian and Pacific Islander students increased. Cultural diversity is on the rise across the nation. Communities such as Tampa, Florida, are made up of people from a wide variety of ethnic, racial, and religious backgrounds, and are rich in traditions, foods, history, and connections. I recently moved from California to Tampa. Upon moving here, I connected with an early childhood education school, or ECE, at which I could conduct observations for several University of San Diego courses. The school at which my research takes place is a private infant to school-age ECE center with 10 teachers and about 60 to 65 students, and is located in a predominantly white, upper-middle-class suburban neighborhood of Tampa. According to the director of the school, their students were a mix of Indian, Chinese, African American, Russian, and white. When I observed at the school, I noticed a significant lack of multicultural education in the pre-kindergarten classroom. The focus of the lessons and activities was primarily on academic subjects, and, to a lesser extent, socio-emotional skill building. The students were not being exposed to or educated on other cultures, races, and religions. Why is this a problem, though? They're teaching high-quality academics, 4-year-old students learning 3 or 4 uppercase letters in a week. The problem is that multicultural education builds understanding, empathy, and respect for others, as well as significantly improving students' academic performances. Lack of diversity in teaching and learning can lead to bias, inequality, hostility, and outright racism. Students exposed to diversity at such a young age are able to build the tools to think critically about the bonds our society puts on people of other colors, races, and cultures. Research suggests a strong correlation between student academic success and culturally relevant pedagogy. Teachers who have incorporated their students' cultural identities into the classroom identified improved student performances. This suggests that it is imperative that teachers adapt to their students' cultures, instead of the students adapting to the school's culture. What does a multicultural classroom look like, and what does culturally relevant pedagogy look like in action? Students are seen and included for who they are, the color of their skin, and the language they speak. Materials are provided that are representative of a vast array of peoples, cultures, and languages. Cultural differences are not just taught, they're celebrated. Student experiences are integrated in the curriculum. What they know and what they've experienced outside the classroom can be powerful teaching tools. And lastly, multicultural classrooms teach social awareness. What is happening in our country, in our society, in regards to diversity and inclusion? My observations and research led me to one question. How can multicultural curriculum and culturally responsive teaching be implemented into all subject areas of early childhood education? The curriculum unit I designed focused exclusively on answering that question. As I stated earlier, the U.S. is becoming more racially diverse than ever before. ECE classrooms reflect that diversity as more people emigrate over. Despite this, many ECE teachers continue to practice colorblind teaching pedagogies, intentionally ignoring aspects of racial and cultural differences in the classroom, while arguing that their students are not cognitively developed enough to understand the intricacies of inequality. Whether or not teachers discuss race and cultural awareness in their classroom, children as young as 3 months are developing an understanding of the concept on their own. The various teaching approaches, colorblind, color-conscious, or actively suppressed, can have a profound effect on how students view race and diversity. Colorblind teaching is defined as a pedagogical approach that intentionally ignores race and racial differences, whereas color-conscious teaching openly discusses, celebrates, and teaches race in the classroom. Teachers need to actively address these issues. That's where culturally relevant pedagogy comes in. Culturally relevant pedagogy, as theorized by Gloria Ladson-Billings, is a pedagogy that empowers students intellectually, socially, emotionally, and politically by using cultural reference to impart knowledge, skills, and attitudes. Teachers who practice culturally relevant pedagogical methods must encourage their students' academic success, must provide support for cultural competence development, and must promote their students' sociopolitical or critical consciousness. Culturally relevant teachers build upon their students' interests, stress the importance of social engagement in the classroom, critically examine concepts with their students, focus activities on their students' cultural environments, and support inclusion of students' cultural context and native languages. As well, culturally relevant teachers build upon students' own cultural knowledge while increasing their knowledge of other cultures, encourage their students to not just speak in but also teach their native languages to their peers, and connect with their local communities to teach students about different cultures and languages. A culturally relevant classroom, also known as a multicultural classroom, features a well-stocked class library with books focused on diverse languages, genders, cultures, and children with special needs, as well as books from the students' own homes in their native languages. Other examples include pictures of the students and their families displayed in the classroom or school, and puzzles, toys, dolls, and dramatic play items depicting age, racial, and gender diversity. Research supports the connection between student success and culturally sensitive teaching practices. Past studies have shown that teachers who incorporate their diverse students' languages and cultural background into their curriculum were able to improve student academic performances. Including color-conscious lessons in school curriculum can combat implicit racial bias, expose racial stereotypes and messages from media and society, and help students learn to identify racial injustices in their own lives. Let's talk curriculum. I designed the unit specifically for pre-kindergarten, but it could easily be adapted for preschool or kindergarten. As well, I focused on the racial demographics of the local ECE school I observed at, where the students were primarily Indian, Chinese, Russian, African American, and white. Likewise, this unit can be adapted to focus on other cultures based on your own students. The curriculum unit will expose the students in the pre-K class to their fellow students' cultures, amongst others, through developmentally appropriate literacy, STEAM, kinesthetic, and interpersonal activities. They will be given the opportunity to have hands-on experience with books, foods, dances, music, stories, and more from different cultures around the world, led by the teacher or by guest speakers such as a family member or community leader. It's imperative for this unit that teachers have a solid understanding of the cultures of their students. One option is to send home a student family survey, like the one I designed here. This will help the teacher understand their students' home lives and the cultures that influence them. The 3 pieces of data I plan to collect from my students for assessment purposes are KWL charts, student observations, and student work. The KWL chart, or Know, Want to Know, and Learned, will be used to assess the students' background knowledge and understanding of other cultures, which can then be compared to their level of understanding at the end of the unit. The observations will be used to assess the students' willingness and interest to learn about other cultures in the lessons, and the student work will be used to determine the students' level of understanding of the lessons and engagement with the materials. The unit was designed for 2 weeks, but can be implemented over the teacher's preferred timeline, depending on the needs of the classroom. The unit I designed is called Around the World. It focuses on multicultural education through math, STEM, art, socio-emotional, and interpersonal skill building. It takes place over 2 weeks, about 1 lesson per day for 10 days. It will explore and integrate students' cultural experiences and identities with academic subjects, as well as introducing students to new and different cultural experiences in a way that will foster understanding, empathy, and global community building. The unit will promote 21st century skills at an age-appropriate and developmentally appropriate level. It will build the foundations for critical thinking skills through creative and collaborative literacy, artistic, and STEM activities. It will push students to think of innovative solutions for larger societal issues while building media literacy and technological skills. The unit makes use of the Florida Early Learning and Developmental Standards for 4-year-olds to kindergarten. The key standards are seen here, but I'm not going to read them to you. By the end of the unit, students will understand that there are many cultures in the world and the differences and similarities between them. That no one culture, race, ethnicity, religion is better or worse than the others, and that everyone deserves respect, and the importance of empathy and understanding of others. Students will also know the countries and places discussed in the lessons, be able to identify by sight at least half of the words from the word ring, and key figures, places, music, and artists from the featured cultures and countries. At the end of the unit, students will be assessed through the performance task, which I'll discuss in a little more detail in Lesson 10. They will be asked to demonstrate their understanding, knowledge, and skills acquired in the unit. Students will also be assessed throughout the unit using the KWL chart before and after the unit, teacher observations, and student work. The unit will begin with an introduction of culture. What is it? Students will gain a working understanding of culture through the story This Is How We Do It, One Day in the Lives of 7 Kids from Around the World. They'll begin the KWL chart, and then the students will draw or write a representation of their own culture to create a class collage. The rest of the lessons will travel around the world, starting in Latin America, crossing the Atlantic to Europe, then to India, China, and the Middle East, and then finally back to the United States. Lesson 2 introduces the students to the concept of skin color. The teacher will read the story Whoever You Are and discuss how some people are treated differently because of their skin color. The students will take part in an experiment involving different colored eggs to identify and develop the concepts of same versus different. Then we will read Off We Go to Mexico to introduce the first culture on our journey. Lesson 3 focuses on Mexican and Latin American culture. There are 2 options for teachers for this lesson, as well as the rest of the lessons in the unit. They can either follow the lesson plan or invite a willing family member to be a guest speaker, or both. The planned lesson focuses on the significance of Dia de los Muertos. Students will have the opportunity to create an ofrenda, which is an altar dedicated to past loved ones, decorate a Mexican sugar skull, and practice Spanish words and phrases. Lesson 4 is all about Cuban culture. The lesson will start with a story all the way to Havana. Students will discuss their observations of the book and the characters' lives. What stood out to them? Then they will watch a video about Cuban culture and discuss how the video compares to the story. How is it different or similar? How does it compare to our own culture? The students will then create their own classic car, a staple of Cuban culture, using cut-out geometric shapes, or a Havana scene using a variety of art materials, which will then be displayed in the classroom. The next lesson focuses on 5 different countries in Europe: England, Italy, Greece, Germany, and Russia. The students will watch a video about Europe and then discuss their observations. Then they will take part in a European find and match game. They will be divided into 5 groups and assigned a country. Each group will take turns finding culture cards of different shapes hidden around the classroom and match them to the country's shape. The groups will discuss each culture aspect on their card with the teacher and then present what they've learned to the rest of the class. They will also learn and practice a few key chosen words and phrases in each language. Up next is India. This is a special activity that involves students making an Indian dish called aloo paratha, which is a type of Indian potato pancake. The class will start at reading Hot Hot Roti for Dadaji and discuss their observations. Then they will break into groups and take turns helping create the recipe, adding ingredients, stirring, and forming the paratha. The teacher, or whoever is assisting, will finish cooking the paratha, and the class will be able to eat it as a snack. While they are cooking and eating, they will be learning Indian words and phrases from the story. Lesson 7 takes us to China. The students will watch a video about China and discuss. What did they notice that was the same or different to our culture, to the other cultures that we've studied? Then the teacher will read kite flying and discuss with the class how it compared to the video. Lastly, the students will be able to create their own kites using paper bags or paper and sticks. Once the students have completed their kites, everyone can go outside and fly them to see whose kite will go the highest. Backtracking just a little, Lesson 8 focuses on the Middle East. The students will watch a video on Middle Eastern culture. Next, they will create a same versus different table. Each student will share an observation of something they noticed that was the same or was different to their hometown, Florida, or the United States. Then in small groups, they will read Big Red Lollipop and discuss the main character's predicament. The students will then brainstorm and write or draw how they would handle the character's situation and share with the rest of their group. Lesson 9 takes us back to the US, where we learn more about African American culture. The class will read Have You Thanked an Inventor Today and discuss the Black inventors mentioned in the story. Which inventions have they used before? Which ones were their favorites or the most important? The students will then be able to create their own invention using a wide variety of materials. This activity is very open-ended. The inventions can have any kind of purpose, like a nose-picking machine or a taco maker. The purpose is creativity and imagination. And finally, we conclude at Lesson 10, the performance task that will determine the students' knowledge, skills, and understanding of the unit. The students will continue learning about African American cultural history in the United States by reading Ruby Bridges Goes to School. Then, in small groups or one-on-one with the teacher, each student will fill out their class book page and brainstorm how they can teach others about different cultures, how they can spread kindness to others, and how they can be brave like Ruby if they see someone being mean to another person because of their culture or their skin. This activity is designed to explore the students' critical thinking skills and synthesize their learning from throughout the unit. How can they spread kindness and cultural awareness in their own communities? Once completed, the book will be bound together and displayed for the class and families to read. And then finally, the class will review the KWL chart from the beginning of the unit. What did they learn? Did they answer all their questions? What questions do they still have? Every student will contribute one thing that they have learned. The chart will then be displayed for parents to see how much their child has grown over the course of the unit. The purpose of this research and curriculum unit was to integrate multicultural education and culturally responsive teaching practices into all subject areas of early childhood education, which include literacy, math, STEM, art, health and physical education, and socio-emotional skill building. Teachers can develop culturally responsive practices by taking into consideration the cultural identities and needs of their students, while supporting their academic success and cultural competency. As well, they can adapt existing curriculum by drawing on their students' experiences, inviting family members for in-class activities, providing multicultural picture books, and open-ended projects focused on the student themselves. The process of creating the multicultural curriculum unit forced me to face my own cultural biases and insecurities. As a white American, I have always lived with my own culture as the dominant one. Researching the various cultures and their experiences provided a deeper understanding of students' experiences and provided a future guidance for setting up a diverse and inclusive classroom. It is my hope that future teachers, as well as myself, will be inspired by this curriculum unit. It serves not as an end-all be-all, but as an example and a starting point. There are countless ways in which to integrate cultural diversity into everyday academic studies. The 10 lessons presented here are merely one possible unit. Thank you.